Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You who are watching this video, I need to talk to you. Not in a general way, not the way we talk to everyone else. No, you specifically. Because what you experienced, few understood, and even fewer survived. You may not yet know why you were chosen, but you know that you are not like the others. You feel things more deeply. You experience trials more intensely. And above all, you have lived through a moment that you cannot explain. A humiliating moment. Brutal, unfair. Like a humiliation ritual orchestrated not to correct you, but to destroy you. You were stripped bare, exposed, misunderstood. And while some laughed at your fall, you could only count on one thing: your discernment. That inner voice that told you not to respond to violence with violence, not to sully your soul, to cleanse your honor. That voice was Allah. And it was that voice that saved you. But ask yourself this question: why would Allah want you to experience such pain? Why humiliate you, expose you, lower you? Was it to destroy you or to reveal you? And if this humiliation was a door to elevation? What if this pain was the beginning of your distinction among souls? You know, the chosen ones of Allah are not honored first with gifts. No, they are forged, broken, isolated, and sometimes humiliated. Not in front of their enemies, but in front of those they love. Because Allah wants to kill in them any need for human validation. He wants them to focus only on Him. What you experienced was not a mistake. It was not a punishment. It was a sacred moment. A divine selection. A test. And not to see if you would win, but to see if you were to have. And you held on. You survived where others would have lost their minds. You didn't sink. You bled, yes. You cried, silently. But you're still standing. And what you don't know is that through this ordeal, Allah has revealed to the invisible world that you are one of those who can carry light, even when they are plunged into darkness. So stay here, because in this video, you're going to discover why you were targeted, why your discernment was your salvation, and most importantly, what Allah has prepared for you now. You have no idea the greatness that awaits you after what you've been through. Do you remember that exact moment when everything changed? That look, that sentence, that betrayal that hit you right in the heart? Not just a mistake, not a simple conflict. No. It was like a setup, as if everything had been prepared for you to fall, for you to be exposed, humiliated, pushed aside. And you weren't dreaming. That was it. A ritual of humiliation. It wasn't an accident. It was a silent, sometimes even spiritual, organization that you couldn't avoid. A moment when the masks fell, when you were put in a position of weakness, defenseless, when the people you respected participated in your collapse, consciously or not. A moment when the world around you seemed to feed on your pain, as if you were an offering on the altar of a system you didn't yet understand. But what you may not have seen is that behind this human ritual was hidden a divine sorting. Allah did not allow your humiliation to lower you, but to isolate yourself, to reveal yourself to yourself. You were not destroyed. You were being separated. Separated from those who weren't meant for your future. Separated from environments where you would never again belong. Separated even from your own past image. The ritual of humiliation is a purification. Allah permits it for clear your name, your heart, your environment. He allows it to tear away from you the dependence on human gaze. Because as long as you are sensitive to the judgment of men, you cannot bear the sacred mission that He entrusts to you. You must be free. And this freedom begins in rejection, in pain, in emotional nakedness. When Allah chooses a chosen one, He does not bless him first. Hevid, He pushes it aside. He makes it pass through the shadows. And it was in the shadows that you were formed. You thought you were abandoned, but in truth, you were isolated to be sanctified. It is not that the world has rejected you. It is Allah who has removed you from the world. It is not that you have lost. It is that He has decided that you will never be the same again. And what's even deeper is that you weren't even allowed to defend yourself. Even when you were right, even when you had the words, Allah shut your mouth. He shut your doors. He closed the ears of others to your truth. Why? Because He did not want you to be justified by men. He wanted you to be justified by Him. It is a hidden honor to go through this kind of humiliation. For those who are not called will never experience it. They may be applauded, but never chosen. You were humiliated, but through it you have been sanctified. You must now understand that what you went through was not a sign that you were weak. It was proof that you were reserve. Ordinary souls do not survive such treatment, but the chosen ones endure it, not because they are strong, but because they are doors. And if you look closely, your heart hasn't rotten. You haven't become bitter. You haven't responded to violence with violence. You've been hurt, yes. You've doubted, cried, screamed in silence. But you have kept your heart alive. That's the greatest miracle. You're still capable of loving, praying, believing. This is where you have to understand. You are not a victim. You are selected. You may not have noticed it right away. But in this ritual of humiliation, there was one thing that you treasured, your discernment. This ability that few possess. This gift that Allah grants to those He is preparing for unusual elevation. And it is this discernment, discreet, silent, but powerful, that has saved his life. Remember, when everything was falling apart around you, you felt that certain words should not be said, that certain decisions, although humanly justifiable, were not spiritually aligned. You could have reacted. You could have fought back, exposed, struck where it hurt. But your soul held you back. It wasn't fear. It was inner light. You knew, without tangible proof, that some people were not sincere. You felt in their looks, in their gestures, that something was false. Allah granted you a vision subtile, not with your eyes, but with your heart. You saw what others did not. And it was this inner gaze that protected you. Discernment is a sacred weapon. It's a shield that elected officials carry, often without even knowing they have it. It allows them to remain silent when everyone urges them to speak, to stand tall when everyone falls to their knees before injustice. It's what protects you from revenge, from the trap of ego, from destructive emotional reaction. You could have ruined everything. One wrong word, one angry response, a well-orchestrated revenge. And you would have been right in front of people, but wrong in front of Allah. That's where your discernment came into play. It was He who made you choose silence, not as an escape, but as a force. For those who can see beyond the moment understand that true honor comes not from reactivity, but from alignment with divine wisdom. And what you may not yet know is that while you were keeping calm, while you were suffering in silence, angels noted your attitude. Invisible witnesses saw what no one else saw. They recorded your patience, your faith, your restraint. Your discernment was not just a grace, it was a heavenly message. You showed that you were ready for what Allah has in store next. Discernment has saved you from pitfalls, from toxic relationships, from irreversible decisions. It has led you to walk away before the explosion, to change direction when everything seemed to be pushing you to stay. And perhaps you only understand now that this strange feeling that invaded you was Allah who called you to back down. You should never regret acting with restraint. You should not think that you should have fought like others. For what people call weakness, Allah calls elevation. What men despise, Allah honors. And today, if you are still here, with your heart intact, with your faith strong despite everything, it is thanks to this discernment. He kept you alive, spiritually alive. And that's the life that's going on now. Barefoot. You weren't just humiliated. You were destroyed. Not physically, but internally. Your honor was ripped away in front of those you respected. Your heart was trampled on without compassion. And what you felt wasn't just pain. It was like a symbolic death, an erasure, an end of yourself. But what you didn't know is that this is exactly what a chosen one of Allah experiences before his rebirth. Because one is not born spiritually without dying to what one was. And Allah, in his wisdom, made you live it in public so that your resurrection will never again be in secret. Humiliation was the fire that burned your old self. The self that still sought approval from others. The self that believed it had to prove everything to be accepted. The self that hadn't yet realized it was loved by Allah as He is. You were not humbled to be brought low. You were humbled to be released. Sometimes it takes Allah removing all the cloaks of appearance for you to understand that your worth is no longer based on your achievements, your entourage, or even your reputation. It is based on a single fact: you are known in heaven. Your name circulates in the invisible. You are a hidden soldier, a silent bearer of light. And you know what? Humiliation protected you. You would never have left certain toxic circles if you hadn't been rejected. You would never have moved on if it hadn't been ripped away. You would never have prayed with such sincerity if you hadn't been silenced by tears. That fall was a reverse ascent. You were going up, but going down. You were in a process of divine purification. Because Allah does not give great responsibilities to hearts attached to illusions. He stripped you, not to leave you empty, but to be able to fill yourself with Him. You had to be emptied of the world to be able to carry the secrets of heaven. It is no coincidence that, since this ordeal, you feel stronger. You hear things that others ignore. You understand truths you had never seen. Your intuition has sharpened. Your faith has taken root. You have become quieter but more powerful. Because you no longer live to be seen, you live to be. What you have been through has cut the bridges with your past. But Allah, He opened a sacred path. The elect. Those whom He hides, shapes, even humiliates, to then elevate them before the worlds. And this elevation is not measured in subscribers, titles, or money. It is measured in light level. You are brighter than before. You are more aligned than before. You are more real than before, because you walked through the fire. And you didn't come out charred. You came out purified. Remember this. Allah never destroys His chosen ones. He rebuilds them. You didn't know it at the time, but while you were going through that dark night of the soul, Allah was writing in you a sacred language. A language that only those who have suffered can understand. You have not only survived humiliation, you have been shaped, and not to remain in the silence of your healing, but to become a guide for others. What you've been through has created a space of understanding within you that even books can't teach. You can now feel the pain of a broken heart without being told. You can see in eyes what words can't express. For you've been in this valley. You've known the smell of abandonment, the bitter taste of rejection, public humiliation, private shame. And instead of becoming bitter, you've become real. And this is what Allah seeks. He fashions His chosen ones in the raw reality. Not in speeches, not in appearances, but in wounds. The real ones. The ones that bleed but shine. Because it's broken hearts that let the most light through. And now your light heals. Your silence reassures. Your presence becomes a refuge. Never underestimate what you have become. This transformation is not visible to the naked eye, but it is palpable in the invisible world. For through you, Allah speaks to other suffering souls. You have become a point, a canal, living proof that you can survive the unforgivable and come out with more faith. You don't need to say much. Your gaze, your calm, your patience, they are living verses. You now carry within you a wisdom that even the most educated people do not possess. For it does not come from learning, it comes from confrontation with pain. And this kind of wisdom, Allah only gives it to those whom He wants to elevate in secret. You've gone from ignorance to awareness, from needing to be seen to needing to be useful. You no longer need to be right. You just want to be true. You no longer seek people's approval, but the gaze of Allah. And that is the very essence of the chosen one. To live for to be faithful, not to be applauded. Your humiliation has given you a mission. What you experienced was not an end. It was an initiation. You were marked, yes, but marked by light. And today, Allah wants to use what you have gone through to guide other lost souls. You may be the one who says a simple word to someone who wants to give up. The one who makes a silent invocation for someone on the brink. The one whose patience becomes a mirror for the impetuous. And all this without noise, without glory. Just with your heart repaired. For Allah does not raise His chosen ones to place them on thrones, but to transform them into living shelters. You have become this. And this is just the beginning. When the humiliation is over, you're not the one who gets back up. It is Allah who raises you up. And when He does it, He doesn't do it with a bang. He acts discreetly, in mystery. He begins to lift you up, without noise. But all those who despised you feel that something has changed. For the chosen one of Allah carries a light that even those who hurt him can no longer ignore. You suddenly notice changes. They are not necessarily spectacular miracles, but strange little coincidences, unexpected encounters, doors that open when you had given up. You meet people you had never seen before, but who seem lend you exactly the words that you needed to hear. You come across opportunities that you were no longer looking for. And above all, you feel an inexplicable peace in your heart. You know that something is happening in the invisible. And that's when you understand Allah has seen your endurance. And He begins to send help, not in the way you imagined, not by taking revenge on those who have humiliated you, but by honoring yourself in front of others whom you have never met. Those who do not know your past, but who recognize the grace that rests upon you. Those who don't know your pain, but feel that you carry something rare. This help can take the form of a word, a contact, a solution, an inspiration. You feel that you are no longer alone, that humiliation has given way to a constant divine presence. And the more you move forward, the more you understand that what you experienced was a setup to distance you from those who were not worthy of you, and bring you into the circle of those God has chosen to walk with you. And it still is through strangers that it begins. For Allah does not want you to be saved by those who hurt you. He wants you to be recognized by those who never saw your fall, but who recognize your light. It is a protection, It is a way of saying, I took you from a place where you were not valued, and now I am sending you to the place where your value will shine. You don't have to chase opportunities. You don't even need to talk about what you've experienced. Those whom Allah sends to you will recognize your heart. And that is the beauty of divine restoration. You do not need to justify yourself. Allah testify in your place. The most amazing thing about this elevation is that it doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you plus humble. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer need to force yourself. You know that the one who saw you cry is lifting you up. You live each day with a new consciousness. I am protected. I am guided. I am loved. What you feel today is more than a consolation. It is a spiritual overthrow. The last become the first. Those who were crushed become the pillars. And Allah has chosen you to embody this. So, open your eyes, observe, welcome. The strangers who are helping you today are perhaps not so unknown. They are messengers of Allah, placed exactly on your path to remind you you survived. And now you will thrive. Because you were patient. Because you trusted me in silence. Have you noticed how since this ordeal, your look has changed? You no longer see people the same way. You feel what is not said. You discern what others cannot yet detect. What you have experienced has offered you an invisible shield. Lucidity. Where once you were trapped by sweet words, today you spot the intention before the speech even begins. You don't judge, but you perceive. And this perception is a gift. It is not just a reaction to pain, it is a proof of the wisdom that Allah has entrusted to you. You are no longer naive. You are guided. You have become a landmark in a world where many are lost. Because what you experienced didn't break your soul, it opened your eyes. Humiliation didn't destroy you, it made you revealed. When Allah elevates one of His chosen ones, He protects him with a discernment that others cannot understand. You no longer need to see to believe. You feel. You no longer need to understand things with your intellect. Your heart speaks faster. This is the direct consequence of your endurance. Your discernment has become your greeting. He's the one who kept you from falling back into the traps of the past. He's the one who saved your life, literally. And now that you are standing, Allah is using you. Not to shine before men, but to enlighten those who are still in the shadows. You were not chosen to be seen, you were chosen to see. See what others run away from. See what others ignore. And through your silence, your quiet strength, your deep gaze, Allah acts. What you endured was not a curse. It was a selection. And today, your whole being silently testifies that yesterday's humiliated can become tomorrow's honored. But not by the world's standards, by the decree of the Most High. So walk with dignity, speak with kindness, pray with depth. You no longer need to seek help. It has already found you. And through you, Allah will help other souls. You have become the answer to a prayer someone hasn't even said yet. This is what it means to be elected. And always remember, you are humbled before men, but restored before Allah. And no one can erase that.